A home. It's something we all need. But for too many, having a safe place to make a home is out of reach. The challenges can seem insurmountable. And yet, each and every day, people are coming together to provide safe, quality, and affordable housing for those in need. Welcome to Let's Talk Housing. I'm your host, Meeta Naidu. Join us as we listen to and learn from people in British Columbia who are creating strong, inclusive communities where everyone can thrive. Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Housing. I'm your host, Meeta Naidu, joined today by co-host Quaimot Elliott. On today's episode, we talk about intergenerational living and housing from an Indigenous perspective and voice. Intergenerational living is a cornerstone of Indigenous culture, where wisdom, tradition, and stories are passed down from elders to younger generations. A new housing development in Vancouver will reflect these values, creating spaces where generations can live together, share experiences, and support one another. It's more than housing. It's a space for cultural exchange, mutual care, and a deeper sense of togetherness. We're joined for this conversation by Brenda Knights, CEO of BC Indigenous Housing Society. She'll discuss how being raised by her grandmother shaped her, teaching her the importance of connection, resilience, and belonging. They'll discuss an innovative pilot, which is part of their sustainability and resiliency strategy. Before we get underway, I'd like to acknowledge that we are recording today's session on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Kikak First Nations, and the Cowichan and Hulkaminam speaking peoples. I express my gratitude to their peoples, past and present. Brenda is speaking to us from the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. Also for transparency, we are recording this episode in November 2024, and the conversation reflects the priorities of this time. So I thought we'd start with just kind of setting the tone and thinking about how your work, Brenda, reflects a need for this deep connection to community and family. I also grew up in a multi-generational and intergenerational home, and I live in one now as well. Can you share for us a moment in your life where you felt the transformative power of intergenerational wisdom?
Thank you, Nita. So I grew up with a good portion of my childhood with a single mother, and having that connection to family, to community, I think made a big difference in my life. It was really difficult on my mom. She only had the opportunity to go to grade 8, dealing with intergenerational trauma, having to take care of her siblings at a young age. So when my brother and I were born and my dad had left the home, I think having that connection to my grandma's home, every Sunday we had dinners with grandma, all the cousins gathered. I think that really made a difference in my life. I didn't feel like I grew up in a single parent home. I always felt like I always had that connection to my cousins and family. My mom always maintained that strong connection to our siblings and cousins that really grew up almost like siblings. And so when I had my children and was going back in the workplace, my mom was very insistent that she was going to take care of the grandbabies. And in my community, the elders, they want to take care of the grandbabies. They don't want them going into care. And so that made it a lot easier, the transition going back to work, having my children in a safe place with my mom. But then also they got the opportunity to go to Head Start in my community. And so they got to learn about the culture, they got to learn the language, drumming and singing. So those extra supports, I think, for young people, especially having families, having that type of connection I think instills a lot of confidence in our kids. It teaches them about our culture. They always feel like they have a home. And I think that's really important for them as they go through life.
I very much agree. Thank you, Brenda. Quaimat, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. Again, it's such an honor to connect with you, Brenda, recognizing your work in the sector with community, with culturally aligned housing, land agreements. Myself, I have a background in community planning and housing. So when I had the opportunity to dive into your rich background, I'm very keen on getting to dive a bit deeper into conversation. More specifically, so recognizing you were raised by your grandmother, again, very common within Indigenous communities. I remember, I think my fondest memory is spending time with my grandma and my papa as well. It was just so natural. And I think, as I heard in your conversation or your starting point there, the key lessons that you carry forward from those experiences and just moving forward with that connection, right? And recognizing that we're part of this larger system. I'm curious. So, what lessons do you carry forward, having spending time with your grandma, in the work that you do today?
I think because I've been connected with my nation, and I look at the things that are positive in community that some of our urban population is detached from. So I've often looked at in my role now as the CEO of BC Indigenous Housing Society, how can I bring some of those practices into the urban environment? And when I look back, I always try to think of things so that they're simple to remember, and there's sort of four areas that I think that make a successful community. If I look at nations that are doing well, I think they have strong governance. So the stability and that brings the supports to the membership. And so when I look at that in the urban environment, I think it's important that we do as much as we can with what we have and we're responsible with that. We have to have community services. We are doing more than housing for our people. And so in a nation environment, we're supporting people with education. We're supporting people with supports for mental health, drug and alcohol addictions, anything that's going to help them to be successful. You can go into the band office and get those supports, and you have that family around to support you to be successful as well. The other one is there has to be a form of economy. We all have to earn a living. Since time immemorial, we all had roles and gifts that we brought to make community, and that was our survival. And so today, in today's context, our tenants need to have a form of economy. And so we're trying to connect them with different, like we have a lot of artisans in our community, for example. So we have TVs in our buildings, so keeping them informed about what's going on in their community, where can they participate, and different marketplaces or special events where they can sell some of their artisans. And then the last one is culture. And I think that's sometimes forgotten about in today's society, how important culture is. For me, it's what's helped me to stay grounded. And I think about the teachings that my grandmother passed on. Family first. We're there for one another. My grandmother would defend her grandchildren no matter what. We might internally give each other a slap on the hand when we're off track, but to anyone else externally, my grandmother, she always had your back. She always had you always had the support of her. And so again, I think that helped with my confidence growing up, knowing that I always had somebody that loved and supported me. But other teachings that were passed along in my community of Kwantlen, we talk about the importance of living by the 7 laws: health, happiness, humbleness, generation, generosity, forgiveness, and understanding. My grandmother didn't articulate it in that way, but through her actions, she instilled that type of conduct in us and expected that of us. And And then as well, my mother as well lives that way. And so I think we were just taught to be that way. And it wasn't till older that I got connected with my community. And when I heard the seven laws, I thought, yeah, that resonates. That makes a lot of sense. And so in our organization today, in an urban environment, we're teaching our employees that to live by those seven laws. And so when it comes to caring for our tenants, come with a mindset of forgiveness and understanding. When you think about the word generations in the seven laws, we're here to make it better for future generations, but also take care of our elders. In my community, I look at our elders and I think about what they've seen in their lifetime, and I'm amazed sometimes at how overcome with emotion they are when they see their grandbabies doing so well. And it's a reminder that they've gone through a lot in their lifetime, and they just want their grandbabies to have it better than they had it. And so it's those kinds of teachings that I think I really want to try and bring back to the urban environment and connect our people, because many have been disenfranchised from their communities, so they don't have that access to culture. When I say bring it back, it's not necessarily me. We have many cultural leaders in our community that can be invited in to speak to our tenants, and so we're looking for those opportunities to have them come and be part of our community.
Very beautiful and rich. I find there's so many threads to pull together, and I find that there's some fluidness and the holistic connections, and we all have a role within family, community, housing, generations, connecting generations together. When there's not necessarily a framework or a structure, it's intuitive and holistic of when the roles shape, right? And our role within organizations, within community. I want to take a bit of a jump and explore how this translates into place and space, and then perhaps making the connection to the Chief Leonard George place. And how does this dedicated space uplift everything that you kind of shared, or how does it weave together for you?
Sure. So yeah, we're very excited about the Chief Leonard George project. For one, it's a mass timber, universally designed, passive home. And so we know from our communities that the environment you're in, it affects your mental health. And so being able to stay in just such a beautiful building, I think is going to be fantastic for our tenants. Now, some of our tenants that are returning to this location, they experienced a fire. We had a total loss of our building a couple days after Christmas back in 2017. And so many had to scatter and be displaced into new buildings, but are looking forward to coming home that lived there for a long time. So we're looking forward to welcoming them back. What this opportunity did, though, is it also offered the opportunity to build more units. And so with those new units, taking some of the teachings of living intergenerationally, one of the challenges we run into, especially in the city of Vancouver, is the economics of a building having multiple rooms. And many of our people, a one or two bedroom isn't going to cut it. We have families with children, they need larger spaces. At the same time, we have to manage the economics of that space. And so, how can we bring families together? Well, the way we can bring families together is by prioritizing applications. So, what I mean by prioritizing applications, if we have a family that's in a two-bedroom unit and grandparents can be in the same building, while they're not in the same unit, at least they're there in close proximity to provide those supports to the family. The other thing we're really proud of with the Chief Leonard George building is we are going to have a Head Start in the building. And so the children can go to Head Start right close to home, which helps parents to go out and work or do what they need to do. And at Head Start, it's really a gathering place. In my community, my aunt is the Head Start instructor. My mom is actually the elder that works at Head Start. And they've been there since inception, over 20 years. And many of the kids that have since graduated still come by and visit. They always have that safe place to go to. And my kids, having attended, they were able to learn from cultural teachers. They were able to learn about drumming and singing. They were learning the language, even just elders coming and spending time with them and just having that safe place outside of the home. I think that's so important for our kids to have that, always have that place that they can go to and talk to somebody if they need to talk to somebody. So we're super excited about that, and we're looking forward to future buildings also having a Head Start program that can support the residents in the building, and that's all part of the family and communal living.
I can see it building off of the 7 laws in which you shared and the core teachings and the concept of family and community. Is there a specific legacy Chief Leonard George plays in the vision of the development, or is there connection to that as well?
Well, I think the most exciting thing about this building is that it is a passive home and universally designed. So when I say universally designed, when we have elders in the building, we want them to be able to stay and age in place and not have to be displaced from their families. A lot of units that were built in the past don't actually have accessibility for people that are in wheelchairs or need better access, just even in the bathroom or around the kitchen, being able to be more mobile if should they find themselves in say a wheelchair in the future. And that's always challenging then when you have to remove somebody from their home, but having universally designed hallways, putting in place bathrooms that are universally designed can allow a person to stay in their home for life. So that's exciting to me. The piece about it being passive, and I mentioned the 7 laws, and we talk about generations. We have a responsibility to leave this planet better for future generations. And the amount of pollution that's coming from our buildings, from greenhouse gas emissions, as an Indigenous organization, we want to do our part to ensure that our buildings aren't polluting the environment. And with Chief Leonard George, with it being passive mass timber, we actually will also reduce hydro costs in that building as a result of it being passive, but we're not putting greenhouse gas emissions into our planet. And so I hope that future buildings we can do the same thing. So that's the piece that really excites me about that building.
That's beautiful. And who was Chief Leonard George?
Chief Leonard George, everybody seems to know Chief Dan George. um, Chief Leonard George was his brother, and he was from Tsleil-Waututh. Our organization previously, some of the names of buildings were not reflecting our community and our culture, and we really want to try and honor people that maybe perhaps people in our community may have heard, may not have heard about. But Chief Leonard George, how he came about was because, so he was from the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. So we're on the traditional lands of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, Squamish and Musqueam. So when we approached the family and asked about naming it after him, had a chance to learn about him, he was instrumental in helping get economic development going with that nation, a real leader in that community. And that's who we want to honor with our building, is those unsung heroes that we don't necessarily hear about that inspire the people living in the building. Those are the people that should be, when we talk about humbleness and our 7 laws, he was an individual that lived humbly, wasn't looking for the spotlight, but absolutely should be highlighted for what he achieved in his lifetime and what he did for Indigenous people. So we're very honored that the family agreed to let us put his name on the building, and there will be a ceremony coming up at the opening with the family.
Wonderful. I feel like it's a coming together of so many pieces. I can see how this space can really be a stepping stone and pivotal in healing, right? The aspects of community connection. Do you believe that theme will carry forward within the space, the intergenerational aspects of healing and transformation? How do you see that taking shape as you continue forward? You mentioned a ceremony to acknowledge and uplift the legacy. Is there other aspects that will be carried out?
What we're trying to do is really focus on how we can fundraise to bring in cultural presenters. So if we could be teaching cedar basket weaving, drumming and singing, bringing elders in. So we have a group from our organization that are regularly looking for grants that they can bring people in to the and be part of that community as a gathering space. The other exciting thing that our organization and our board passed this past year was an ESG policy. So that stands for environmental, social, and governance. I know you know that from the work you do. But with the ESG policy, we're looking to have a committee that includes tenants that can contribute to ways that we can ensure that we're being held accountable, but also as a community, how can we improve the environment from the social perspective? How do we improve things from a social perspective? And how do we ensure that we have good governance? And so I have a responsibility to ensure that I have the respect of my tenants because they look to me to help them and support them in an urban environment. And so I have to gain their trust, gain their respect. I'm grateful that the board selected me, but we have work to do with our tenants and to get to that place where they feel that they have that trust.
You're doing such extraordinary work in that space. What would your grandmother have to say?
You know, my grandmother wasn't somebody with a lot of words, and I do think that it is a she was a product of intergenerational, trauma. What she went through. Many of our elders only recently have felt that they can have a voice, but I think she would be proud. But I also I'm very careful not to be again, one of the laws being humble. I am in a leadership position, but I do see myself as a servant leader in that it's the entire organization. It's not me sitting at the top and directing everybody what to do. I recognize that I have a gift to bring, and my gift is leadership. I'm the conductor of the orchestra. But if I don't have the rest of my staff, I have amazing staff. I have people that have worked in supportive housing for years and understand how to advocate and get people the supports that they need. We have people working in finance and HR. We have an all Indigenous board, and it's collectively that we're able to move forward and be successful. It's not just one person that makes the organization successful. And I think my grandmother, that's how she was. She was very humble, didn't want any recognition. She got involved in community and just did her part. And when I think about how my community lived in longhouses, and at least in the winter months, we were hunter gatherers, and then we moved in the winter to our longhouses, and we all had gifts. And if you didn't have the medicine teachers, then you might eat a plant and die. So you needed the people that had the plant medicine. You needed the hunter and gatherers. You needed the people that cooked the meals. We all had those roles to play. So I think my part is I often think is very simple in terms of just having to lead and bring that vision. But I also recognize those are from teachings that have been passed on in my community and passed on for my elders. So I'm really just grateful for that.
Thank you so much, Brenda. And please let the listeners know, how can we support your organization, especially those from non-Indigenous communities? What can we do?
I just suggest that, there's a lot of discussion happening on truth and reconciliation, which is wonderful, especially in our schools. But ask yourself how you can truly put reconciliation into action, because it's one thing to talk about, it's another thing to actually make a difference. And there's many ways that you can get involved. You can reach out to your local community. There's lots of volunteer opportunities. There's opportunities for donations with organizations that support programming. Really, you've just got to step in and get involved. And I know it's not easy when we're all busy, but ask yourself what gifts you have and how you can support and make a difference to somebody else. That, because we say it's going to take 7 generations to create change. And so I didn't tell you, my great great granddad was Grand Chief Wattle Canham, who met the Simon Fraser expedition. And that's in present day New Westminster when first settlers arrived. Well, my daughter is the 7th generation from him. And so that's from the late 1700s. And you think about what's happened in that time period. So we still have a lot of work to do. So just get involved, do what you can. It's welcomed. We have people on healing journeys, so don't be discouraged if you don't get the response you're looking for. We have some people that are hurting, and it takes time for them to trust. And so you just have to be patient. But I find that when you're patient and you just lend an ear, people will be very gracious to have that support.
Well, thank you so much, Brenda. I've learned a lot from you, and I've listened to your words, and your values and your beliefs have shone through in this interview, and really just so grateful that you could spend this time with us. And thank you, Quaimat, for being an amazing co-host, and the conversation was wonderful. I really appreciate it.
I want to build on that as well. And thank you for sharing space with us today. It's through conversations like this, we're able to honor connections and stories and resilience of our communities. I know I'm able to say that like these teaching will also kind of be carried forward and inform my practice of respect, reciprocity, and strength and humble leadership. So, Haichka, Brenda, and thank you so much, Mita.
Haichka OCM.
To learn more about BC housing, including how to apply for subsidized housing in British Columbia, visit www.bchousing.org. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a rating. This will help others find Let's Talk Housing and join the conversation. You can subscribe to Let's Talk Housing on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.